I'm not saying that Saddlesore Galactica is my favourite episode of The Simpsons. It's not even my favourite episode of season 11. However, I don't necessarily think it's as bad as a lot of people find it. I can certainly see why it's not the most loved episode, though. It's the 13th episode of the 11th season of The Simpsons, directed by Kramer. And there are two main narratives here, and I'll talk about maybe the least problematic, and that is Lisa, who is taking part with her school in a school band competition, and she realizes quite quickly that the band that's going to win is doing so because of cliches and because of certain other things that she thinks are not fair reasons, and she kind of makes a big fuss about this and takes it to an extreme. I won't spoil it by saying exactly what she does, but she definitely thinks it's unfair, and she definitely makes her voice heard, as she should, of course. That side of it I thought was interesting enough, pretty good going. The main narrative involves a horse called Duncan, which I think is a brilliant name for a horse, and Homer and Bart actually take on this horse after he finds it abused, and they realise that it's actually very expensive to keep. There is reference to Lisa's pony. Apparently they've forgotten how much things cost. And they decide, in order to basically make Duncan earn his keep, they enter him as a racehorse. And the jockeys are... well, I think the jockeys are... that's where it starts to become problematic. I don't know exactly how much to give away without spoiling it, but I'll say the jockeys... the interpretation of the jockeys is terrible. I don't think anybody watching this would think that that's what jockeys are like, but at the same time, you never know. I don't know, but I feel like it is definitely quite problematic, and I think that's where a lot of the questions come into it, and it does make me think, well, why did you necessarily have to do that with the jockeys? The narrative would have worked well enough without that, but sometimes you have to take a risk with narratives, and with comedy as well, and sometimes those risks just don't necessarily pay off. And I feel like that's the case here. Now, that's not me saying I find it offensive or anything. I absolutely don't. I tend to not find anything that offensive, to be perfectly honest. But I can understand why some people might. Completely understand. So, yeah, it's problematic in places. I think it's an interesting enough narrative. And Duncan as a horse is pretty great. I like the design of the horse. I think he's pretty well animated. I love the colourful mane. When he's the racehorse, I think he's pretty good. He's pretty good fun. It's nice to see Bart, in particular, interacting with him. It is weird that it's not Lisa who's, spending time with this horse and interacting with the horse. But of course, she's got her own things going on, so fair enough. It's not perfect. Far from it. I don't think it's the worst episode ever. But I can definitely see why Saddlesore Galactica is definitely one of the lowest rated to this point in the show.